Hello, and welcome to Prairie Pulse. Coming up a little bit later in the show, we'll hear a musical performance by the band Q5. But first, joining me now is the new police chief from Fargo, David Todd. And Chief Todd, thanks so much for joining us
Thanks
today.
for having me, John. Glad to be here.
As we get started, tell the folks a little bit about yourself and your background, where you're originally from.
Sure. Well, I grew up in North Fargo. In fact, my mom still lives in the same house up in North Fargo. We moved to Fargo when I think I was 5 or 6 years old back in 1971, and I've been a part of Fargo in some form or another ever since then. And I am married, have 2 sons. I've been married to my wife for 25 years, and my sons are 22 and 18, David and Jake. And I started with the Fargo Police Department in 1987 as a police officer, worked all the different beats, all the different shifts, and got promoted up through the ranks step by step, working all the different opportunities within the department, and never had a plan that I would be the chief, but here I am. Finally, 28 years later, I'm the chief of police.
Well, there you go, 28 years in law enforcement, all with Fargo.
Yes.
But what got you into law enforcement?
Well, that's a great question. You know, when I started college, I thought I wanted to be a physician like my father. And so I started down the pre-med track, and after about a year, recognized it just wasn't what I was interested in. And we had a good family friend, Les Sherrick, who was the chief of police of Moorhead at the time. And he let me go on a couple of ride-alongs, and that really piqued my interest, and I switched my major to criminal justice and pursued that, ended up doing an internship with the police department. And as I was about to graduate, I got hired with the Fargo Police Department.
Well, okay. Well, you know, how has the transition been going so far? I mean, you were the acting chief
Right.
following Chief Turnus's resignation, but then you got the appointment mid-October. So how's the transition going?
Well, the transition has really started back in November of 2014 when I got the interim chief position. We recognized that we needed to accomplish some things both internally within the department and externally. And really to really summarize what the changes were, we needed to create trust and transparency amongst the ranks and the work groups within the Fargo Police Department. That seemed to have broken down, and there was a little bit of an atmosphere of fear within the department. That's how people operated. We also needed to fix trust and transparency externally, both with the community that we served and the other law enforcement agencies in the area. Some of those relationships seem to have broken down a little bit also with the police departments and sheriff's departments here in our community. And then we needed to fix those relationships statewide within the North Dakota. So we put a strategy together on how to do that, and we've been slowly accomplishing both internally and externally fixing those relationships and that trust.
Okay. Well, I guess my next question, you just commented some about it, but it's been chronicled in the media that there was some semblance of a morale problem. And can you comment on how maybe you dealt with that during
Sure.
your interim and how you're moving forward with it?
Well, that morale problem was, I think it is driven from the top down. There was a disconnect that had occurred there from all the command staff positions to the line level positions. And that disconnect equated into trust issues between the command and the line level. And what I needed to do is find ways to fix that within our department. So we started off with a number of listening sessions that I conducted for our department with every single work group, every single employee, letting them get out their frustrations, vent what they needed to vent, and then finally hear their ideas for how we could make our department a better department. Those listening sessions have kind of turned into strategy sessions and some new programs and projects for our department. And we implemented some of those education-based discipline, revamping our use of force evaluations to make them quicker so that officers could get the answers back as to how they were evaluated on their use of force. The education-based discipline is using incidents where officers make a mistake and providing some education to them. And if they're willing, they provide the education to the rest of the department so everybody can learn from that mistake and not make that again. And so when we set up programs like that, it gives officers choices and opportunities. If an officer has made a mistake and they have a choice of receiving traditional discipline or helping us to educate the department on how not to make that mistake, every single time the officer so far has chosen the education-based discipline route. And I think it tells the officer that, one, we're going to invest in them, and number two, we trust them to help convey that message to the rest of the department. So far, it's been successful. So then the other things we've been doing that I believe in is small unit leadership. So I have been, since I've been appointed in October, I have taken some steps to restructure our command within the police department. And what I want to do is go back to having lieutenants on every shift, and I've also restructured investigations. What I'm trying to do is create small units that have the leadership embedded in those units, so that leadership isn't a set-aside entity. Leadership is part of those units on an everyday basis. And by doing that, we're creating that trusting relationship and trying to foster that so that we fix some of those morale issues.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you've talked to the police department personnel
Yes.
following your appointment as permanent police chief, do you think that most of them are supportive of your hire and moving forward, or how do you feel?
I think most of them are supportive of it, but they're also sitting back to see, okay, he has talked the talk, he's starting to walk the walk, but let's see what develops. But I think that's not unique to any police department. I think when you have police officers are almost all type A personalities, driven, independent people, which is what we want, because they're out on the street making decisions every day in regards to how they're going to conduct business, in regards to people's freedoms. And so sometimes not always an easy group to manage. But I think the best way to manage them and lead them is by engaging them and involving them in our leadership. And so that's what I'm trying to accomplish. So I think we have definitely created a different atmosphere within the police department, a little bit of excitement, but there's also a little bit of, well, let's wait and see what he actually does.
Sure. Well, let's talk a little bit about crime in Fargo. I mean, there's been a growth in population over the past few years, and people say that's all good, but growth in population usually means growth in crime.
Yeah.
Is Fargo still a safe place to live with our population around 100,000?
It is a relatively safe place to live, but I will tell you that, as you said, with growth comes issues. We are growing as a city at approximately 3,500 people per year, so that's about 10 people per day are moving into Fargo. And the vast majority of those people are good people pursuing their dreams here because the economy is good and they want to make a living. But along with that comes an element that wants to take advantage of the good economy, of the situation, and prey on people and commit criminal acts or their criminal activity, whether that's selling drugs or doing other type of criminal activity. So we have to find ways as a police department to keep up with that. Between 2013 and 2014, we had a 1% increase in crime overall. This year, we're seeing about a 1% increase in personal crimes so far. That personal crimes can be anything from assaults to robberies, person-on-person crimes, and we're seeing probably about a 9% increase in property crimes. So that might be thefts or burglaries, those type of crimes.
Mm-hmm. What about your staffing? Do you need more officers in certain areas?
Well, never say I don't need more officers. We currently with the Fargo Police Department and the population we have in the city right now, we're at a 1.29 officers per 1,000 people in the city. And that ratio of 1.29 is relatively low. In the upper Midwest, usually the ratio is around 1.5 officers per thousand. Now, if you went to the East Coast or the West Coast, it's well over 2. But we have to find ways to work smart with the resources that we have, and so we have a number of programs and mechanisms that help us allocate our people where they need to be there and when they need to be. But I also put a plan together for the mayor and the city administrator on growth for the police department if our population continues to grow as is. That's the first time they've ever asked us to do that. So that was a 10-year plan that I put together, which equates to at least 5 officers additionally to the department per year to stay at that 1.29 ratio.
Mm-hmm. What about, of course, you're over Fargo, but obviously we're in a metro with, I think, usually 4 cities, at least at least when the chamber meets. West Fargo, Moorhead, and Dilworth get together. What's the relationship like with the other police departments, and do y'all assist each other?
Right now, that relationship has improved quite a bit. I meet regularly with both sheriffs, Chief Ebbinger, Chief Wrighton, Chief Bill Vondell with the NDSU Police Department, and we communicate regularly. I also meet regularly and communicate with the BCI director out of Bismarck, and because he's got personnel here. The federal entities, the DEA, the ATF, the FBI, we talk regularly. We've taken a lot of steps to improve those relationships. One of the things that we've done to come together as agencies locally is to create the Metro Street Crimes Unit to go after gang activity that has been occurring in the last couple of years within the city. And it's not just our city, it's Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo, because it doesn't do any good for me to create a street crimes unit just in Fargo and push the problem over into Moorhead or over to West Fargo, because then we all still have the problem. So we've come together and allocated resources together to do that.
Okay. Well, what do you feel like is the biggest issue you face as police chief going forward?
Growing wisely and having a strategic plan for the department. So that is one of my goals as the newly appointed chief. After I get my command staff restructured and everybody kind of gets settled into their positions, I would like to work with our department as a whole to create a 3-year strategic plan for our department. We have some pretty heavy-duty issues to tackle for our department. Number one is to have that personnel plan and maybe get it committed to. Number 2 is a radio plan. The current radio system we have right now, which is our mobiles, our portable, that we carry on our belts, our car radios, the repeaters that are located throughout the city, and the counties. Those systems, end of life is 2018, which means that the companies quit making parts for that radio system. So we have to find a way for all of us together to come up with a plan to move to a new radio system. So that's a major project we have to take on. Facilities, we are outgrowing our station. Right now I'm authorized come January for about 187 people working for the Fargo Police Department. That's both sworn and non-sworn positions together. And we're in that same building we were in back in 1994, so we're busting at the seams. I've got 50 officers that don't have lockers. We have half the parking of the vehicles that we have, so that's become quite a challenge. So the city commission, the mayor has given us the health department building across the street that they recently moved out of there to help as a Band-Aid to alleviate our space problems. So we need to come up with a plan long-term for short-term for that building, long-term for bigger facilities, and then that strategic plan.
Yeah, what's your relationship like with the city commission? I mean, that's who you go to, I guess, for most of your budget, if not all the budget. Yeah.
I think it's pretty good. I write a newsletter every week that goes out not just to our personnel, but I include all the commissioners and the mayor and the city administrator on that newsletter, so that I keep them up to date with what's happening within the department, what direction we're going, what's the rationale behind some of the decisions that we've made. And then I communicate with the commission on a regular basis. The mayor is my portfolio holder, so I talk with him quite regularly. and the city administrator also.
Okay. Yeah. What is the policy, your policy, when an officer has to use their weapon and shoot someone?
Well, that's a pretty comprehensive question, and it's not something that happens very often, but yet we've had that happen twice this year. We've had 2 officer-involved shootings. Usually we go 5-6 years in between incidents like that. We have an officer-involved shooting policy that kind of sets the parameters of how officers respond to the scene, what a supervisor is supposed to do when they get to the scene, and how they protect the scene, how they accompany a person that may have been shot, they accompany them in the ambulance, how they collect evidence from that person. It then also deals with what we do with the officer that was involved in the shooting. That usually means sequestering them and getting them away from the scene and then interviewing them. We oftentimes, officer-involved shootings will call in an outside agency like the BCI to come in and do the investigation of that shooting so that there's no conflict of interest because it's one of our people that was involved. We also place that officer on paid administrative leave until the outcome of that criminal investigation, which includes an opinion by the state's attorney's office. And then finally, we have the welfare, the well-being of the officer is also involved in the policy, where we provide a defusing debrief for that officer and for the other officers that may have responded to the scene. We call that peer assistance counseling team. And then we also provide psychological services for that officer that was involved immediately after the incident, and then psychological eval before they come back to work also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a lot goes into it.
A lot of it. And then we also do an internal investigation and internal affairs that checks through the whole thing to make sure that what the officer did also complied with policy and training.
Yeah. Boy, I got a question here. It may take too long to.
Sure.
Video technology, cell phone videoing. We've seen things go viral with officers in the negative, some in the positive too. But does that impact your department at all?
It does. The thing about cell phone videos or body cameras is sometimes it captures the whole incident. Sometimes it only captures part of the incident. A good example of that would have been the incident we had in South High with our school resource officer that got involved in an incident, and that was filmed on somebody's smartphone. And so we had to watch that, but then also interview the officer, which we found out there was a whole series of events that led up to that video. That once we explained to the public became a little more understanding of what that officer had to do. So there's a lot of issues surrounding video.
We are really almost out of time, but you've got some programs going on. Can you just briefly mention them?
We have our cultural liaison officer that reaches out to all our new American communities and provides education to them. We have our community trust officers that work with the cultural liaison officer, reach out to our maybe underprivileged, underserved communities to establish trust and transparency with our community.
So if people want more information, where can they go? Who can they contact?
They can contact the Fargo Police Department at 241-1437, and then we can direct you from there to whatever you're interested in.
Well, Chief Todd, we appreciate everything you do for our community and wish you the best of luck as you take over as a new police chief. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, John.
Stay tuned for more. Two sisters, Tanya Kemper and Monica Winter, lead the bands Q5 and Bloom with their powerful voices and intoxicating stage presence. The members of both bands are from fertile Minnesota area. The music of Q5 ranges from 50s and 60s to country, classic rock, to today's current pop trends. The band Bloom offers a mix of original music.
Jump into the water, untie all the cables and rope. AstroTurf. Get yourself a koozie, let's go. Who said anything about skiing? Floating is all I wanna do. You can climb the ladder, just don't rock the boat while I barbecue. On the pontoon, making waves and catching rays upon the roof. Jumping up the back door, act like you don't want to. Party in slow motion, out here in the open, motorboat, yeah. Reach your hand out into the cooler. Don't drink it if the mountains are blue. Try to keep it steady as you recline on your black inner tube. Pontoon, making waves and catching rays upon the roof. Jumping up the back door, act like you don't want to. Party in slow motion, out here in the open, motorboat, yeah. Water slide can't beat the heat, so let's take a ride. On the pontoon, making waves and catching rays upon the roof. Jumping up the back door, act like you don't want to. Party in slow motion, out here in the open, motorboat, yeah. On the pontoon, on the pontoon. Back this hitch up into the water. On the pontoon. This magic moment, so different and so new, is like any other. Until I kissed you, and then it happened. It took me by surprise. I knew that you felt it too. By the look in your eyes, sweeter than wine,
Sweeter than wine,
softer than a summer night,
softer than summertime.
everything I wanna have. Whenever I hold you tight, this magic moment,
This magic moment,
while your lips are close to mine, will last forever, forever till the end of time.
whoa, 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 whoa.
Sweeter than wine,
Sweeter than wine,
softer than a summer night,
softer than summertime.
everything I wanna have. Whenever I hold you tight, this magic moment,
This magic moment,
while your lips
This
are close to
magic
mine, will last
this
forever,
magic moment,
forever till the end of time.
whoa, whoa,
Whoa. Magic, magic moment.
Well, that's all we have on Prairie Post this week. And as always, thanks for watching.
Funding for Minnesota Legacy programs are provided by a grant from the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4th, 2008, and by the members of Prairie Public.